What would it take for a sitting president to hand a note with the word treason scrawled in Sharpie to his own Attorney General and mean it? That is not a hypothetical. That is, according to detailed reporting, exactly what happened. And what follows from that single moment stretches into something far bigger than one note, one man or one news cycle. This is the story of a government turning its legal machinery not just against political rivals, but against the journalists trying to tell you what is actually going on. Let's back up and set the scene. Donald Trump has been on what can only be described as a legal revenge tour. Depending on how you count, he is somewhere between 0 for 20 and 0 for 25 when it comes to using the courts and government powers to go after people he sees as enemies. That is a losing streak by any measure. None of these cases have produced a conviction. Many have been thrown out entirely. But here is the thing, losing has not slowed him down. If anything, it seems to have made the pressure more intense, and the targets bigger. Enter Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, who Trump has publicly praised as his enforcer, a man he credits with keeping him out of jail. That is a remarkable thing to say out loud. The chief law enforcement officer of the United States praised not for upholding the law, but for protecting one particular man from it. Trump even said it himself at a public event. And yet Blanche now finds himself under enormous pressure to pursue targets that legal experts say could put his own law license at risk. If he goes forward with cases built on political pressure rather than actual evidence, targeting the former president's long list of named enemies, that is what lawyers call selective prosecution. It can get cases dismissed. It can get prosecutors sanctioned. It can end careers, and that enemies list is not small. Trump has reportedly pushed for investigations into John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. He shared a post demanding their indictment. Now, it might sound far-fetched, but here is why you should not dismiss it. Things that once sounded far-fetched have already happened. The FBI director, a CIA director, sitting lawmakers, the head of the Federal Reserve. These are not hypotheticals from some critic's nightmare scenario. These are people who have already been targeted. The list of faces being pursued under the previous Attorney General, one Trump fired for not doing enough, is long, and it is real. But the story that has really shifted gears lately is not about politicians. It is about the press, specifically the Wall Street Journal. And this is where things get genuinely alarming. The Journal is not some fringe publication. It is one of the most respected financial and political newspapers in the world. It also happens to be owned by Rupert Murdoch, the same man behind Fox News. You would think that connection might offer some protection. It has not. The Trump Justice Department has now issued grand jury subpoenas to Wall Street Journal reporters covering the war. That word, subpoena, matters. These are not strongly worded letters. These are legal demands backed by the implied threat of jail time if you do not comply. The government stated justification is that classified information may have been illegally leaked and that national security is at stake. Now, to be fair, the DOJ absolutely does have the legal authority to investigate illegal government leaks. But here is the critical distinction that gets lost in the noise. If a government employee broke the law by leaking something, that is who the investigation should target. The journalist who received that information and reported it did not commit a crime by doing their job. Subpoenaing the reporters, especially when the coverage is of an unpopular war that has already drawn heavy public criticism, raises a very different question. Is this really about protecting national security, or is this about shaping what the public gets to know about the war? And that war matters enormously to this story. Trump launched a proactive military strike on Iran without going to Congress, without a national address, without any meaningful opportunity for public debate or dissent. The strait that was once open for American energy needs is now closed. Gas prices have risen. The economic fallout has been real, and public opinion on the war has turned sharply negative. The press has been one of the only windows the American public has had into what is actually happening, because Congress was cut out and the public was given no advance notice. Against that backdrop, subpoenaing the journalists covering the war is not just legally aggressive. It sends a message. And messages like that have a name. It is called a chilling effect. Even if the subpoenas ultimately go nowhere, the process itself becomes the punishment. Reporters think twice. Editors get cautious. Stories do not get written, and the public ends up knowing less. The Wall Street Journal is not the only outlet in the crosshairs. Reporters covering this administration have faced an escalating pattern of pressure from multiple directions at once. A Washington Post reporter had her home raided by federal agents who seized all of her electronic devices. An unprecedented move in a national security investigation. The EOC filed a discrimination complaint against the New York Times over a hiring decision involving a white male reporter who did not get a promotion. The FBI is reportedly investigating The Atlantic over its coverage of the administration's behavior. This is not one incident. This is a coordinated pressure campaign, hitting multiple institutions from multiple angles simultaneously. Now here is something worth sitting with. Trump once had a genuine instinct for public relations. He understood how to frame a message, how to avoid repeating attacks that reminded people of his own behavior. But that sharpness has dulled. At one public appearance, he brought up weaponization, a term his own side has used to criticize his opponents, and in doing so, reminded everyone that he is the one currently wielding government power against critics. He called it weaponization while weaponizing. That is not clever spin. That is contradiction at full volume. Rupert Murdoch is a fascinating figure to watch in all of this. He has a long, complicated history with Trump. He still runs Fox News, which Trump and his base consider a friendly platform. But the lesson of this moment is stark. Friendly does not mean safe. Even if you own a major conservative media outlet, if you publish something Trump does not like, you become a target. Nobody is outside that radius. The fictional version of Murdoch in HBO's Succession, a character widely seen as inspired by the real man, was portrayed as someone willing to fight anyone, tough and ruthless. The real Murdoch built a global media empire by being exactly that kind of figure. And yet the Wall Street Journal is now the one receiving government subpoenas. The irony is not lost on anyone paying close attention. What makes this moment so significant is the constitutional weight behind it. The First Amendment is not an accident of placement. It is first because the founders understood that a free press is not a luxury. It is a guardrail. A government that can intimidate journalists, subpoena their records, and raid their homes over coverage it dislikes is a government that can hide what it does. And when the war is unpopular, when gas prices are high, when the public is already frustrated, controlling the information becomes the most powerful tool available. Right now, your government is attempting to use that tool. The evidence is documented, the subpoenas are real, and the pattern is undeniable. This is not about whether you like Trump. It is not about which party you prefer. It is about whether the press can still do its job without fear of being punished for it. It is about whether you, as an American, get to know what your government is doing in your name, with your money, in a war you were never asked about. Those questions belong to all of us, regardless of where we stand politically. And they deserve your attention right now, not later. If stories like this matter to you, and they should, hit that subscribe button. This channel covers the developments that directly affect your rights, your information, and your country. And we do it every single day. Don't let the algorithm decide what you miss. Subscribe so you never have to.